Hey, it's the Red Rican, and I want to piggyback off of a story I spoke about yesterday about, excuse me, about the health, what's going on in New York with the whole if you're white, you're not going to be able to, you're going to have a harder time accessing um, COVID treatments because of the executive order by the governor saying that people of color are getting priority. Which, look, I'm a person of color. I don't, you know, it doesn't affect me, but I just think it's the wrong way to go about um, dispensing medical care. And this is the problem with wokeness, identitarianism, um, intersectionality, whatever you want to call this plague. It's affecting everything, even medical care. And that's why it's disturbing. I came across this article. I'm going to share it with you. It's called White Coats for Black Lives. It's a national organization of medical students published its statements of visions and values. So here, I'm going to read directly from what they say here. I don't want it to I don't want the summary from the article, but I want you to read what they say here. White Coats for Black Lives aims to dismantle racism in medicine and fight for the health of Black people and other people of color. While not exhaustively, you will find several of our guiding principles and visions below. And here it goes. Dismantling dominant exploitative systems in the United States, which are largely reliant on anti-Black racism, colonialism, cis heteropatriarchy, white supremacy, and capitalism, and rebuilding a future that supports the health and well-being of marginalized communities. Nobody, it goes here, as Fannie Lou Hamer said, nobody's free until everybody's free. We're dreaming of a world where Black people have the autonomy, prioritization, and tools to lead healthy lives in their own terms, and the health of our society is rooted in the well-being of those most marginalized. We believed in fighting for the dream that uses long genitals organizing and direct action that prioritizes building collective power over individual gain. I'm sorry, still recovering. Um, anyways, I'm going to go back to the article. I just wanted you to read, when you see this stuff, especially when it goes here, colonialism, cis hetero, patriarchy, white supremacy, and capitalism, how they lump this stuff all together. And it's CRT, it's Marxism, it's, I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, their answer is to destroy everything and build it the way they want it. It's not improving the system, it's destroying it and putting their system in place. That's what they want. They don't want to fix, it's not about racism. It's not about improving um, race relations in this country. It has nothing to do with that. And here it talks about summarizes some of the things what they talked about, dismantling what they talked about, but also dismantling fat phobia and now I'm not going to sit here and say that, of course, there's no system that's perfect. There's stuff that needs to be changed. Like, I'll give you, like, when they're talking about fat phobia, that's ridiculous. Okay, look, listen, there's health complications that come with being obese. This whole fat phobia nonsense is unhealthy. Is an unhealthy thing that's going on in this country. But are there stuff that the healthcare could improve? Give you, for example, I lost weight. I almost had a six pack. I was 200 pounds at the time, like anywhere between 200, 205 pounds. Um, 34 waist, which was good, but I was still considered 15 to 20 pounds overweight. Now I was cut. I was, um, like I said, almost had a six pack, but I was still considered overweight. So yeah, there's stuff that needs to go on with these scales. Um, I'm pretty sure if they would have did a BMI, my BMI would have been low at that time. But these are things that can improve. But what these people are talking about, this is not improving healthcare. This is not improving, like I said, it's not even improving race relationships. Um, all this is doing is what Marxism does. Marxism, all it does is say oppress versus oppressor relationship, bourgeoisie and proletariat. Okay, there is, and their solution is always Marxism. That's, I mean, you look at from their own website, not from, excuse me, not from, of course, when I want to show you what I'm talking about, it wants to, okay, there we go. This is their own, this is from their own website. If you see here, white codes for Black lives, it talks about it right here, dismantling dominant exploitive systems in the United States, which are largely reliant on, all these keywords for, like I said, CRT, Marxism, whatever you want to talk about, it's there. Um, and I'll link to this, so if you people want to read it, here it goes. It goes. Um, we define anti-racism as the practice of intentionally dismantling racism and accompanying systems of oppression while centering the needs and well-being of those most marginalized in our communities. Anti-racism requires intentionally dismantling anti-Black racism, white supremacy, capitalism, imperialism, colonialism, dismantling fat phobia, self-education, including Black queer feminist praxis, theory and practice, unlearning toxic medical knowledge, and relearning medical care that centers the needs of Black people and communities, centering those marginalized in our communities. Here it goes. I mean, this is their own words. This is not, it's not about medicine. It's not about improving medicine. It's all about an ideology. Their ideology is Marxism. It's CRT. People don't want to hear it that CRT is Marxism. Okay. But when they talk about, dismantling capitalism, dismantling the cis hetero patriarchy and all this white supremacy, all this nonsense. It's just, all they did was replace the proletariat and bourgeoisie for race. That's all they did. Okay. And that's all we got going on. That's right now, they say it's a theory to say cultural Marxism, but that's what we have right now. We have cultural Marxists that are trying to take over this country. That's what wokeism is. That's what CRT is. It's a push to um, dismantle the Constitution, because they say, these people say that they're proud Americans, but meanwhile they hate the Constitution. Because it stands in the way of them getting their communist, Marxist revolution, utopia, whatever you want to call it. But when you're separating people by race, it's one thing. Separating people by classes, it's harder to do in this country because you have rich Black people, you got poor Black people, you got rich Spanish people, you got poor Spanish people. And, the problem is, yeah, we do have, when you have people in inner cities, the money is going to be spread thin because not everybody can be rich when you have millions of people living in cramped cities. But here you have these people talking about, fat phobia and dismantling. Look, when if they were serious about science, they would talk about how, they're talking about Black feminist queer theory, whatever, you know. But meanwhile, to me, you look at that and you go, let's say, a trans male, which is a female who wants to be male, comes into the ER and complains of stomach pain. Okay, if they're complaining about stomach pain, and you treat them as what their identity is, you would go, okay, well, it's a male, let's do these tests, da 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 da. Okay, well, guess what? They may identify as male, but if they're female, and they still have sex, let's say with men, that trans male could be pregnant. But if you're eliminating it because oh, there's no differences between men and women and they identify as a man, well, guess what? You still, when it comes to medical practices, you still have to treat that, trans male as a female, especially if they're still having sex with men, because they may be pregnant and they may not know it. It could happen, so this is what goes on when you have these delusions of how we're going to, change the medical system. No, you know what? Medical system, science, they don't need these social justice infusion. In some senses, they, you could go, okay, they could change, some of the systems, but change it as you do studies and let's say healthcare studies, science studies that shows, oh, okay, well, let's say, at, you could be 200 pounds as long as your BMI is 5%, then you're not obese. But, fact that, there's just these random scales that, whatever, let's say if there is some sort of, implicit bias against, what, let's say, like they say, what white supremacists think that, should be the norm. Okay. But it shouldn't matter if it shows that, okay, you are unhealthy if you're this weight, this size, this BMI. It shouldn't matter. Shouldn't matter what, just because the fact that you think that it's, it's racist. Health is health. But granted, there are some, diseases that are in, let's say, Black people, like sickle cell anemia, something like that, where, yeah, that's something that, okay, you should know as a doctor, okay, I have to be careful, I have to, so like, there's like, what's that, oh man, there's a disease that I want to look up, hold on. So you have diseases like Tay-Sachs and celiac disease, that they're genetic disorders that you have to, they're kind of, they're race specific, they're ethnic centric, that you have to watch out for. But this is, this is stuff that doctors have to read in literature. But honestly, unless you live in a multicultural community, you're not going to come, you may not come across, if you live in a multicultural community, you may not come across this stuff, as opposed to people who live like in, live overseas, that are in homogeneous communities, like, China, Japan, um, Israel, places where you have, um, homogeneous communities, where you may come across these more often than you are going to come across it like in like the US and Europe, but this is what goes on with these these this Marxist, this cultural Marxist revolution that's going on in this country, because that's what people, they don't want to hear it. They want to ignore it. They want to put you want to put your head in the sand. Look, there's no conspiracy theory behind it. Cultural Marxism exists. It's what's going on. That's what this whole wokeism, that's what this whole CRT, all this Marxist infused thought into the culture is going on right now. We're living through the cultural revolution. And the question is, there's gonna be there's basically two sides. There's the people who are pro it and the people who are against it. And then you got the people who are in the middle. I'm not calling you a side, because you're going to need to choose a side. You're going to need to choose whether you want the cultural revolution, or you want just there to be things to change, but not so radically, because that's what's going to go on. If you're someone who wants change, but not radical change that they're offering, then you cannot be on their side. That's the whole thing, because if you go with that side there, you're going to get dramatic change. You see the stuff that they're talking about. Look what they're instilling in fat phobia, putting race into health-based decisions, saying that because the color of your skin, you can't get a medical treatment. Isn't that supposed to be racist? And it is. I'm not even going to call it reverse racist, because to me, reverse racist is bullshit. Racism is racism. But these people, that's what they're pushing in this country. And we're living through this cultural revolution, whether you want to admit it or not. This is we're living through the 1960s China right now. And the question is, which side do you want to be on? Do you want to end up being how China is now? Because that's gonna happen if we lose this cultural revolution. We're gonna end up going the route of China and become a Marxist country. But only if people are willing to stand up, speak out against it, is the way that we will move forward in this country. If not, we're not going to progressively get better. We're going to progressively get worse. We're going to get more tyrannical. And freedom, I will always err on the side of freedom and not err on the side of control like that. I rather have the dangerous freedom than than the security of control, the security of they want to oppress people who don't want their Marxist utopia. We're the people that they want to put into the re-education camps in the gulags if they're successful in their revolution. And I'm going to leave it there. I'm the Rarican. Hope you follow me here on YouTube or Rumble. Preferably Rumble, because I don't trust YouTube. No one really trusts YouTube. That's why Rand Paul is leaving it. And you can interact with me on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Gab, Telegram, Getter, Parler, all of them. Clout Hub. I'm on all those sites. So with that being said, have a good one.